Hey G, thanks for joining the podcast today, and looking forward to our chat here. You have a very long and really cool background, so looking forward to getting into it, and then
Pleasure.
also what you're doing at AWS. I guess not that long, but long enough.
It's
So
all
thanks for
good.
joining.
It's all good.
So G, I'll always like to start with what is your perspective, right? Like, how did you build that perspective? What informed that perspective? And it usually comes from your experience, right? And so would love to hear about your experience in tech, your experience kind of rising within the ranks of a leadership. You're an executive at Amazon, but you've been a CEO and many other things. So we'd love to start there.
Yeah, sure. Happy to. So, from the very beginning, I've always been interested in how things work. Taking things, one of the kind of classic children of taking things apart, starting out by not being able to put them back together again, to my parents' chagrin, but then over time learning how to do that as well, and just going deeper and deeper into tech. The other thing that I've always really liked to do is to help people and be able to kind of help out things. And so as my tech journey kind of grew, and we can go through some of the steps, but one of the key pieces of it was landing in the security space, because security for me is unique in the sense that you can help people and protect people from adversarial attacks, but also deep into the technology. It's constantly evolving as different threat vectors arise. And so for me, it's the best of both worlds. And just following that journey got me to this point.
Okay. So I think we could probably have another podcast about how you used to take things apart and not put them back together. But I think that is the engineer's.
Yes.
You're an engineer's engineer, I'll call it. Right.
Yes. Yes.
I think engineers are a unique breed. They're amazing at what they can do. They're very complex, but then they also want to build complex things, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I love that. Maybe we can have a conversation as part of that. How do you build products in tech?
We can count the explosions that occurred in my early days.
That's right. So if I get that correctly, did you kind of start your career as an engineer or developer? Did you start on the tech side, or where did you kind of get your first?
Well, actually, I started as an IT tech, running computer lines back to a mainframe with terminals, fixing them, setting up systems and whatnot. And from that, you just start getting deeper and deeper. Let me read the schematics. Let me figure this stuff out. And so I just went down the rabbit hole into my undergrads in mathematics and physics, PhD in electrical engineering and computer science, as I just kept going deeper and deeper, from transistors to materials and whatnot. And eventually I had to kind of bounce back out of that and start kind of building things again. And so started my journey in the wireless space and thinking about wireless systems. And then, of course, once we started grouping compute together into kind of what we call a cloud today, that started a whole new journey in software development for me.
Okay. All right. So it sounds like you started on the end user side, which I think, gives you that perspective as to how end users think. And to your point, they're just trying to solve problems, and they're trying to firefight, and they're trying to get through the day, and they're not thinking like, how do I go build something? It's more about, how do I use this thing that's built and use it within the wild and chaos of my tech people process, right? And whatever else is going on that day.
And how to improve it. Like, maybe it's too slow. What's the next generation? How can I go faster? How can I automate something? And so, as you kind of help people through that, you realize that there's an opportunity to do that through technology and technology innovation.
Okay. All right. Well, I think that always, sets you up with a different perspective when you have that experience on the end user side. It doesn't matter if you've been a CIO and a CISO, or a sysadmin, right? Or a developer. Like you understand, I'm going to say, the pain.
Yes, exactly.
and the opportunity.
And look, as when I was in Bell Labs and eventually leading that organization, where I had the privilege of just working with such brilliant individuals, and so you also see the creative element of this, and so the motivation is clear about the interest in technology and helping solve problems for people, making their lives easier, but just the creative way of solving problems as well, and going after it. And so yeah, it's a great opportunity for sure.
Okay, all right. Well, let's get to the good stuff here, which is the tech side and kind of how you got into that. So talk to us a little bit about your role at Cisco and some of the other companies that you led, and then we'll get to Amazon. But let's start with kind of the pre-Amazon first. What did you do? What were some of the things that you learned that kind of set your perspective as to how you see the market and what you're doing at Amazon?
Yeah, sure. So as I said, I started my career in Bell Labs. Was able to take on many different technologies, wireless, optical, networking, software, as well as some of the more fundamental sciences like physics and mathematics. But it was very clear that the model was changing from boxes into a cloud and kind of massive compute. And so from there, I left and joined Cisco to run their cloud effort. And after a few years, was asked to take on the security responsibility. And as security was moving to the cloud, it was a natural kind of migration. And that's what introduced me to the world of security. Fortunately, again, I was blessed to be part of a team that was very, very deep into that industry and that technology, which kind of mentored me and brought me up to speed really quickly. And from that, as you just, again, continue to follow the cloud path, I ended up leaving that to create a company called Sky High Security, which is a cloud security company. And then I eventually came over to Amazon and AWS to secure a hyperscaler cloud.
Okay, all right. Well, we'll come back to the small company experience because I think that is probably a fun one. But let's get into a little bit about Amazon. What are some of the high priorities you have right now at Amazon? What are the things that you're talking to customers about? Amazon is a huge company. How do they think about security? Let's talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, Amazon and AWS is a fantastic place because security is what we call job zero or priority one here. And so it's broken into two components, what we call the shared responsibility model. One is security of the cloud. So ensuring that the facilities, the chips, the operating systems, all of the infrastructure is secure. And that's our responsibility and one we take great pride in solving for our customers. The second one is security in the cloud, where we offer services that customers can use and configure to secure their applications. And what we found was that that security in the cloud was complex. And we have a lot of services to do that on behalf of the customers, but configuring them, installing them, integrating them together adds a level of complexity that we really wanted to solve. And so after joining AWS, that has been our primary focus, is to consolidate these into services so that, again, customers can use them, find them easy to use, and just kind of take that burden off of them and by bringing all this together on their behalf.
So would that be your, I'm going to say, differentiation compared to an Amazon or Google or Microsoft or some other cloud, or a data center provider, an MSP? All of the ISPs are trying to do this too. They're trying to consolidate a platform, platform it, make it easier. what makes Amazon unique, other than, of course, you are the biggest cloud, people use you, you have a lot of customers, you guys are kind of developer first. What is it that makes this unique? Because some of the other companies could say that, and some of the companies are a little bit ahead in some ways and maybe a little bit behind, right?
Yeah, fair point. In the security space, we've been talking about platforms and systems or suites for a very long time because of this constant integration of best of breed products in a customer's environment. And there has always been this kind of trade-off historically between the best of breed, I want the best individual point products, and then I'll integrate them together, versus a suite that does a lot of things, but maybe not equally well across the portfolio. And this has been a debate ongoing for many, many years in the industry. And what we find now, though, is, to your point, first of all, the attack surface continues to decrease as we move into the cloud. You don't have to support all of these different remote offices, and people are now working from home and dialing in and stuff. So the entire kind of ecosystem can change, and you can start to see, to your point, ISVs and others really kind of building out these platforms. One of the things that kind of differentiates us in the way we approach it is just by the size and scale of AWS. We have massive insight into what's going on the internet, what's coming into, trying to break into the environment. We've written several blogs on our MadPot capability, our DNS capability, and whatnot. So we're able to build both best of breed components, and then, of course, being builders, we can integrate them together to make them easier on behalf of our customers.
Okay. All right. Well, there's a lot more to get in there, but I want to talk a little bit about a topic that you kind of brought up here, which is, cloud security is fundamentally different than traditional data security. And you've now lived in a leadership role at both of those types of companies, and you've seen lots of different types of companies, and every company comes from a different place, right? They all have different challenges. They all have made different investments over the years. They all have different philosophies, right? Just because Bank of America is the exact same business as Wells Fargo, they are going to run their business differently because they have different people leading it. So let's maybe walk us through kind of how do enterprises need to think about the differences, and how should they think about their journey, because very large organizations are going to have both on-prem and cloud. They're going to have multiple clouds. They're the smaller companies too might do that for different reasons too, right? So walk us through kind of your perspective on that, and what you've seen both at Cisco and AWS now here.
Yeah, one of the things with cloud that's typically different than an on-prem or a data center environment is that cloud, beyond just the compute, storage, and networking, has a whole ecosystem built around it with DevOps and CI/CD pipelines and all the IDEs that kind of couple into the cloud. So it's very elastic in its deployment, and it's elastic in the way it's constructed from a developer community. And so the cloud environment is unique from a security perspective because it all starts with the builders. So the builders are the ones, through infrastructure as code and software, create this environment in the cloud. Then an entirely separate group called the security team monitors this, but the security team's not going to touch prod and things. So the security team then hands it back to the developers. So you have this kind of two-step process: developers to security team, and then security team back to developers. And because of this kind of interesting model, cloud security is really focused on developers, bringing security to developers, where in many other cases, it's improving security for security professionals. And so you see a lot of different companies and ISVs and whatnot focused on making that security environment and the day in the life of a security analyst better by giving them ninja tools and doing all these things. Where in the cloud, we want to make security invisible and give it to the hands of the developers to keep it out of the environment altogether. And so there's just a difference in approach. And I think one that's facilitated by cloud development rather than what you would normally see in a classical on-prem environment.
Okay. What are some of the ways that you see this manifested, within customer organizations? And what are some of the challenges you see as those organizations try to adopt this? Because it's a challenging thing, right? This is not just a technology thing. This is a people thing, right?
Yeah, it's absolutely a people thing.
And you have multiple parts of the organization, right? You got, I'm just going to say VP engineering and CTO, and then you have security team, and then you have CIO, and then you have a lot of other people who have other ideas. So, and then you have the organizational structure of what they currently have, and the organizational structure that they want to move to. And the cloud operating model is much different than the on-prem operating model. So maybe just give us some stories you've seen as you talk to customers, either from Cisco or AWS, or and you don't have to tell us who they are or anything, but maybe walk us through that, because that is the biggest challenge, I think, and is also a change management challenge that I think we all as leaders would love to spend more time and effort on and money, but like you kind of got to just move fast and do it. So maybe walk us through what you're seeing and some of the stories you have.
Sure. So in AWS, we get together with CISOs in a kind of closed environment where we can kind of talk freely about different topics. And we call those CISO circles. And it's a really wonderful time. And I deeply appreciate the community of like-minded security professionals that we've developed and be able to have those kind of conversations. And when joining AWS, I always look forward to talking with CISOs and customers. And so I was really looking forward to participating in these CISO circles. And I walked in thinking that it's going to be about the latest technology or the latest attacks or these kind of things. And I found, to my surprise, how much time was spent on this culture issue of being able to develop a culture, both within the security team as well as that relationship to the developers and the builders, and how it becomes a transformation discussion as much as anything else. And so just things like, what is the process that we use and the mechanisms that we use to continue to raise the bar inside of AWS and to produce continual improvement on both security efficacy as well as the coverage. And so just that mutual learning. And it's always great to hear, as I come back now to circle after circle, of other CISOs implementing these kind of models in their own organization and sharing the excitement of having these deep security reviews, being able to have weekly stand-ups around security, being able to work deeply with the team and challenge the team on security issues, that we're all speaking from the same sheet, if you will. It's really been great to see. And so it's less the organization, who the CISO reports to or how the organization is structured. It's much more around the kind of cultural transformation of security is everybody's responsibility, and everybody has a part in securing the organization.
Okay. All right. Can you give us one or two stories or give us something that, maybe you can't tie back to somebody on that exact culture change, right? Like, I've seen the CISO, and again, I know you haven't been there forever at AWS here, but in one of these circles, this is what I saw, or this is what I heard from a CISO as they kind of went from a stage 0 maturity to 1 or 1.2, and then how other CISOs have said, oh yeah, like I had that problem. How did you solve that problem? Because it is a technology thing. You certainly embed in your platform, but like, what are they doing organizationally to work across the org to do what you just said, right? That this is everyone's problem, and we can't just slap it on and make people do it. That's not going to go well, right?
Yeah. So what has happened before, and what I've seen and heard in several examples, is that within a CISO organization, it's divided up along tool boundaries. One group is really good at a particular tool, endpoint protection or network protection or these other things. And so these boundaries exist, and the teams take great pride in being experts in that particular tool, where of course security covers all of these things. And so by breaking down the silos in those kind of conversations, a team can become defensive. If something is going on, we're always trying to expose issues or potential gaps so that we can close them quickly. And if teams are kind of more insular, then you don't get those exposures and whatnot. And so what the team, first of all, a lot of people recognize these isolated teams around tools. And then secondly, by having these weekly stand-ups and uplift meetings and being able to kind of challenge each other, those in a positive way, those defenses start to come down, and people are able to have kind of much more honest conversations over time, and there's a trust that builds up across the broader team. It's just always great to kind of catch up with someone who may be 6 months into the process, and they go, yes, we had a breakthrough. Like we're finally talking across these things and being able to share. That's been a common conversation in these CISO circles.
Okay, I liked your comment about trust, right? And you've been a leader. The same things happen at Amazon and Cisco and all the other companies, right? Like, it is a trust thing. How do you build trust? How do you kind of lock arms and move forward together, right? And it takes time and it takes trust, right? And that'll be our next podcast. We'll do that some other time.
Very good.
So did we get into the situation because of how technology was built? And because we've been having this problem with companies and leaders and silos, forever. And the way that technology is usually built is it's evolutionary, right? Like you build this one technology, then you kind of change it a little bit, and then there's a gap, and then you build something brand new, so there's nothing to kind of intersect with it, and then you got to integrate it. Like, is this just a technology kind of evolution problem? And do you think we are going to get to a point where we are going to change the way we build technology to support these cultural and process issues? Because what I see is, end users are starving for vendors to build technology to enable them to build processes and enable their business, and stop building tools for tool's sake. Tools are great. You can use them. They're needed, but we need to kind of get beyond that, right? And so I'd love to hear your perspective on that, because you've been in the industry for a while. You've seen all kinds of stuff. And, I think we're getting to a point where buyers are now almost demanding it, right?
Yeah. Security industry, from my perspective, the security industry is interesting because it's really built on technology waves. And so the network gets attacked, so you build a firewall. Your laptop gets attacked, so you build endpoint. Your identity gets attacked. And so as these things kind of come through, you build up a capability to defend against those. But they never go away, right? Just because there's another attack doesn't mean you can let your eye off of the ball on the network side or the laptop. So you start to get these striations of technology, and then of course the experts in those fields or those tools and whatnot, and so just I think because of one of the fundamental natures of the industry, it can lead itself from both a technology perspective and an operations perspective to be quite siloed in that way. And I do think, and by the way, it's coming again as we think about agents and Gen AI and these other things. But I do think now with the introduction of tools like security agents and whatnot, we can start, they can analyze tons of data and span these things, these different technology areas very, very quickly, building up insights from each of them and then correlating and thinking about them and summarizing in new and unique ways, as well as taking these playbooks and workflows that also typically have been very isolated and start combining them and thinking about them more holistically. And so I do think that over the last few years, we're starting to see technology as well as the kind of culture-led approach from CISOs starting to break this down and enabling teams to act more holistically and respond more holistically than perhaps we were in the past.
Okay, yeah, that totally makes sense. All right, well, let's get to the Gen AI agentic thing. The first thing I was like,
it was only a matter of time. Sorry about that.
I mean, yeah. So let's start with kind of like your experience, with this whole Gen AI thing, right, and agentic, right? Like, have a lot of conversations with executives, and they're all just like amazed with how fast this thing is moving, how much it's changed in a year or two, the opportunity that exists, just on and on and on, right? So when did you kind of first get exposed to it? Because as a leader of companies in the space, I'm sure you kind of saw it coming. You saw what was happening. What was your first experience? What did you think was going to happen? And then we can talk a little bit about, like, from there to here and where you think it's going.
Sure. So being in security, machine learning and kind of deep data analytics has been core to our industry for well over a decade. So we're very, very familiar with ingesting large amounts of data and looking for that needle in a stack of needles using this kind of approach. What changed was the transformer and the LLMs, because previously a lot of the AI and the natural language processing were more semantic-like approach of translating English to French or these kind of things based on more heuristic models, rather than just sheer data ingestion and approaching it from that perspective. And so when we saw LLMs come in, the natural response was, okay, now I can take these findings, which are complicated and whatnot, but transform them or translate them into natural English, so that we can really make the analyst's life easier and stuff. And so you started the first kind of wave of that was around, take this complicated thing, what is this finding I'm looking at? What does this mean? And condense it into a paragraph so I can quickly look at it and see if it's important or not. That was the kind of the first pass. And it took a little bit of time to build that up because the translations weren't completely accurate. And of course, security is all about efficacy and making sure that we're getting it right. So it took a bit of time. And during that time, though, we started to see the introduction of agents, where I can now based on my response, go query an LLM again and get more data and modify the prompt and do these things. And so we quickly went from summarization into workflow automation. And this is kind of where we are now, being able to query other tools, other platforms, get more data, evaluate it. And to your point, this didn't exist like 9 months ago. MCP was like 6 months ago, 7 months ago. So the industry is moving very, very quickly because we're all familiar with data analytics. All of our workflows are already curated in text and whatnot. So it's really primed for this opportunity for us.
What are you guys doing with Amazon or with LLMs internally, both for your own people to enable your own people, and also to, let's say, pick up the stuff that people don't need to do, which is a lot of things, right? Yeah. We're building some stuff internally. We talked to a lot of organizations. There's so many things you can automate leveraging Gen AI and agentic. So, the first step that we talked to a lot of organizations is, solve the problem that you haven't been able to solve, which is the people that you need to hire to do these jobs, or to help the people take away the menial things so they can, as a developer, to your point, be the builder, right?
Yeah.
So I'd love to hear your perspective on how you're enabling your people, what you're seeing with your developers, and then we'll kind of move over to what AWS is doing with customers.
Yeah, so on the developer side, and just this week, we've launched an entire new suite of developer tools inside of Bedrock NRQ with Kiro and whatnot. We've been down this path for quite some time, almost since LLMs started, because we have a very large team of developers inside of AWS. And while it's easy to develop applications inside the cloud, when you're maintaining services that support millions of individuals and it's global and whatnot, there's a lot of surround to the code of just monitoring it, instrumenting it, deploying it, maintaining it, documenting it, whatnot. And so we found that those use cases are really good at LLM or Gen AI type applications, and to take that load off of the developer so that they can focus on the code itself. And we've seen that across the board in all of our services, and that has been widely adopted throughout at least the security services part of AWS.
So I had a conversation with a tech developer leader, I want to say like a year and a half ago, and we were talking about how the Gen AI was going to help enable developers and code, and the stuff that I'm going to say was open to the masses was still not that good, right? It was a bunch of big companies have launched some things. It had great vision, but it just kind of fell down a little bit, Yeah. So, how have you seen the quality and accuracy improve, and how do you see organizations like an Amazon helping improve that accuracy? Amazon's one of the few companies that can like literally do everything themselves, right? So if you're like, I don't like what this vendor's doing, or I can go build something myself. So did you guys go build something yourself? Did you, kind of going back a couple of years, or have you kind of just moved along with your own services or partners to make that evolution? Because it's just been dramatic in the last 9 months on the accuracy of coding. And because it's a technology, the first people that are going to get their hands on Gen AI stuff is the technologists, and that's the developers. So they're like, at this point, like I'm light years ahead of everyone else in the world, which is so cool, right? For developers, it's always kind of their time, but like it is now their time, right?
Yeah.
And so I'd love to hear your perspective on how you guys helped kind of move that industry along and help it become accurate, and where do you see it going with developers, right? Like what's the next thing you see happening? Are you guys working on anything, of course, that you can talk about? Love to hear your perspective as to how developers are going to even be more of a hero.
Yeah. So AWS is built for builders by builders, and so all of us here are deeply in the developer ecosystem, and to your point, we have seen measurable improvements in all of these systems almost quarterly. Every
like
3
100%
months.
every quarter, not like 3%, 2%.
Yeah, exactly,
It's like,
exactly.
just like astronomical. Yeah.
And it's not just this gradual improvement. These are step functions improvement in capabilities over time. And so we do it in a number internally, at least on the security side. We do it in a number of different places. First of all, it really does help onboard new engineers. They can summarize the code well. We've got, obviously the documentation, so they can ramp up to speed much faster in the code than you could with the kind of usual training and kind of onboarding. And so we've been able to kind of accelerate the onboarding. The second thing is that, like I said before, our services are global scale, and so there's a lot of code that supports the services, and just being able to automate that and that surround allows our engineers to focus on the code itself and providing more value to our customers rather than just the scale. And in many cases, it actually performs better than engineers. And a classic example of this is testing. While we always like to think about having a broad and complete test coverage, there's no corner cases in AWS, just given our size and scale. And so these approaches can span and look for all sorts of combinations that perhaps an engineer wouldn't have considered. And so in that way, it really does improve us. And then, of course, just the speed. We do have our own internal tools that we use, but we also give our developers the freedom to use other things. And so we learn from each other. We're able to go faster. We're able to prototype faster with these things and kind of test it out with customers. So it just helps us go faster in a more complete way.
Okay. All right. Well, it sounds like you guys had a great experience, and it's enabling the people and letting them do the creative thing that they love, being a developer, right? Okay. So let's talk about the bad guys, right? What are you seeing AI enabling the bad guys to do? What are some things you thought you'd never see that you're seeing? What are some of the things you're like, we kind of expected that? What are you kind of seeing from the bad guys? And then to your point on the step function of the Moore's law every 5 minutes here, what are you seeing on the bad guy side? Love to hear your
so I think there's a couple things. One is you no longer get emails from princes thinking that you've now won $1 million if you give, like, the sophistication of attacks and whatnot has certainly gone up. The entry points have not. It's still around vulnerabilities, compromised credentials, etc. But the sophistication of that has increased. And so being able to respond to this and be able to automate configuration, code vulnerability scan analysis, both static and dynamic, before prod is kind of a critical step, and which is why we've taken a lot of our security portfolio and built it into those developer pipelines. And so just trying to keep that out, because everything is operating at machine speed now. And so it's all about keeping things out of the environment. But the quality of the attacks continues to improve, and it keeps us raising the bar for sure.
Okay. Yeah, I liked your point about the princes. I I never got my $1 million, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
It never worked out, but I'm not getting those anymore. So I might have lost my opportunity there.
Exactly. You're getting other emails that are now grammatically correct and much more relevant. So yeah,
That's right.
We still are the weakest link for sure.
100%. That's what I was going to say. It's the human entry that always seems to be the issue.
Yep.
Okay, let's talk a little bit about customers here for a second. Let's talk a little bit about the maturity and how you see organizations maturing through cloud. That's one thing. And then two, what would you tell to organizations that are looking at, do I do Amazon security and leverage them, or do I use other tools? You guys, I think versus some of the other competitors out there, do not necessarily compete directly with the security companies, but you are doing some things here that are integrated into your workflow. So, why should a company, engage Amazon on security for some of these things versus use what they have or go buy something else? So let's talk a little bit about maturity, what you see happening with customers, and then, the Amazon versus, the other company I have, or both, right? So talk to us through that.
Yeah. So first of all, just starting with the cloud, we still feel that we're in the early days of cloud. It's massive, even though, but it's still early days, and the majority of the workflows are still on-prem and are migrating to the cloud. And we feel that Gen AI and agentic workloads will just accelerate that because of just the opportunity to do this and scale so much more rapidly when using cloud rather than on-prem. The second thing is, from our perspective, we are absolutely customer obsessed. And there's a fundamental belief that more choice is better than less choice. And so we are very proud of the fact that we have a partner community of some of the largest security vendors out there that run on AWS, and as well as many large companies and whatnot. And so providing customer choice is a key tenet that we believe in and encourage. And so security is a constantly evolving space with a very broad remit. And so together with partners, some of them are in the same areas that we are, again, giving our customers choice. We welcome that. Others are in completely different areas. And I think together, letting that customer choose and giving them the best security possible just facilitates more workloads going to the cloud. And if we can make it easier for them to move to the cloud because allowing them to use their current security provider, great. That's awesome. We look forward to that.
Okay. Yeah, I think, like you said, on-prem to cloud, it is a transformation well, it can be transformation. It's usually just a change, and then it turns into some type of transformation eventually, right? And I think the challenge that customers have is, okay, I have these set of tools I use, I have these vendors I'm using, now I'm going to a whole new ecosystem. That is overwhelming, right? Yeah. And so I think everyone's learned a lot over the last couple of years. They've learned what they didn't know before, and now they're smarter because of it. And on the Gen AI side and agentic side, I think a lot of folks are starting in the cloud because it's easy to get going. It's just that simple. Like, you start in the cloud because the tools are there, the integrations are there, you just get going, right? And I think
compute is there.
Compute is there, right? And I think you see that with through OpenAI. I think they mentioned they're like a $10 billion run rate now. And like, the reason why they're doing that is because anyone could literally go use it beyond a technologist, right? And I think that's the most interesting thing about cloud and what the companies do and what AWS does. You give the power to the technologists. I think eventually we need to give the power to the business people to build technology, but that's a whole nother conversation. We're going to get into that here, I think, with Gen AI and agentic. But how can you help somebody get up and running, like right now, right? Anyone can start a business. That was the amazing thing that Amazon allowed, right? And that created this entire industry, right? So it must be super fun to be there, G. I'm sure you're having a blast, and super creative, fun culture over there. Anything else you want to talk about here before we wrap up here? We've talked about AI, we've talked about agentic.
We'll come back to the
customers
explosions at a later date, but no, I appreciate the opportunity and love the conversation. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Cool, G. All right. Well, good to have a math guy here to give us his perspective on AI. Thank you for joining, and we'll talk soon.
Thank you.